Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of Council on Tuesday, the 15th of August. To start the official proceedings, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jarrah country, of which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many. Really? Okay, I will continue. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jarrah country, of which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Item 1, we have 5 councillors present tonight: Councillor Cordy, Councillor Maltby, Councillor Driscoll, Councillor Henderson and myself. Also present is the CEO, both of our directors and our Principal Governance Officer. We have 2 councillors on leave of absence at item 2. Councillor Gardner and Councillor McClure are both on approved leaves of absence at this time. Item 3, are there any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest? No. Item 4, confirmation of minutes, and 4.1, meeting of council, 18th of July, 2023. There is a recommendation. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got the board recommendation of the minutes of the meeting of Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 18th of July 2023 to confirm with the following amendments to the legislation in item 9.2.1 Building Asset Management Plan that's written.
And do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. All in favour? And motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5, acknowledgements. We have nil. Item 6 is public time. We have 2 pre-submitted questions, which we will go to first. Councillor Maltby, would you like to read our first question, please?
Thank you. From Nicholas Rush, regarding motion 003/2023, carried council meeting on the 18th of July 2023. The council advocates for the banning of commercial kangaroo harvesting in Mount Alexander Shire Council to the Victorian Government, relevant ministers and departments. Can council confirm the cost to ratepayers, the preparation of the motion and the submissions to the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, Minister for Agriculture and the Minister for Outdoor Recreation?
Director Anea, to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nicholas, for the question. I can confirm that 2 hours is required for responding to the motion and preparing the submission to the ministers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Cordy, could you please read our second pre-submitted question?
Thanks, Mayor. Questions from Travis Bruni regarding motion 003/2023, carried at council meeting on the 18th of July 2023. The council advocates for the banning of commercial kangaroo harvesting in Mount Alexander Shire Council. Do you still realise that under an authority to control wildlife, that more kangaroos would be culled and left in paddocks to rot? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Director Anea, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you also, Travis, for your question tonight, for your comment. I can confirm that the authority to control wildlife permits are issued by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action. The permits include strict conditions to ensure that animals are controlled humanely. Individuals who have been granted a permit are required by law to comply with the authority to control wildlife conditions as set out in the permit. They also note that the National Code of Practice for the humane shooting of kangaroos and wallabies for non-commercial purposes must be followed before the kangaroos are shot underneath the Authority to Control Wildlife program. Thank you.
Director. Are there any public time questions or comments from the gallery? No. All right, thank you. We will continue on to item 7, petitions and letters. And just slightly earlier, we received a petition. So in accordance with section 12.2 of the governance rules, council has received a petition today from 227 petitioners in relation to support for the commercial kangaroo harvesting program in Mount Alexander Shire, and governance has confirmed that it meets the requirements to be considered as a conforming petition. Accordingly, an opposition report will be prepared within 2 months for consideration at a future council meeting. This petition, I'm just going to read the reason and the request. So it is a petition to support commercial kangaroo harvesting in Mount Alexander Shire. Reason: any actions by the Mount Alexander Shire Council relating to kangaroo management should be based on data and scientific analysis. Request: that Mount Alexander Shire Council, 1, investigate the full social and economic impact on farmers, the community, and the environment of the increasing population of eastern grey kangaroos in the Shire. And 2, report the findings to our community before making representations to the State Government of Victoria regarding the Kangaroo Harvesting Management Plan, KHMP. So we will table this and receive a report from officers within 2 meetings or in 2 meetings. Item 8 is committee reports. Councillor Henderson, would you like to introduce this one for us?
Yes, certainly, very briefly. The committee reports before me is the North Central Goldfields Regional Library Board reports, both the board meeting and also the quarterly report on the customer library. These are tabled as confidential attachments because they contain sensitive staff information, etc. A recommendation by the room that council notes the confidential North Central Goldfields Library Corporation is provided. We provided full information.
Thank you, Councillor. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, thank you. And all in favour? Fantastic. Motion is carried. Would you like to speak to the motion, Christine? I'm sorry.
It's a bit confidential.
It's difficult.
But I would just like to note, I'm sure this would be all right to note that in the lifelong learning, which are several sections, several things companies the library is describing. One is actually a partnership with the Malvern Upper Elm Library, which of course is a very old, long-standing library in Malvern, and I'm really pleased to read that staff from the customer library working with the folks from Malvern Upper Elm Library to discuss different ways they can support Malvern residents to access the Goldfields Library collection through the library. So that's particularly bad. Yeah, one of the many great things that we've done by Upper Library in the customer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we make no secret, appreciate greatly. Easily yourself get a copy of their quarterly report. It is a lovely read, very, very uplifting. Of course, my picture is on the front too, and I think that also helps me really engage with content. But I always get a lot out of them and really recognise the great work they're doing across a bunch of different priorities that align so well with what we're trying to do so much of the time at council as well. Moving on to item 9 and officer reports. 9.1 community and 9.1.1 planning application PA 211/2022, which is the 28 Dinah Road in Shooton. Councillor Cordy, would you introduce this item, please?
Thanks for that, Mayor. The subject land is located at 28 and 42 to 44 Dinah Road, Shooton. The land is comprised of multiple parcels totaling approximately 1.4 hectares and accessed via Prize Road off the Pyrenees Highway. The land is zoned township zone and covered by the bushfire management overlay. All services are available. The proposal is to subdivide the land into 9 allotments, ranging in the area from 807 square metres to over 2,000 square metre, and includes native vegetation removal. The application has been referred to council for a decision because more than 5 submissions have been received objecting to the proposal. At the time of writing this report, 27 objections have been received. Issues raised by objectors can be grouped under 3 main types. 1, neighbourhood character as it relates to the subdivision pattern and lot size. 2, amenity issues related to traffic and dust, noise and light pollution, fencing. And 3, environmental issues related to native vegetation removal and loss of habitat for native animals, including the local kangaroo population. Many of the amenity issues can be ameliorated by appropriate conditions on a permit, should one be issued. Neighbourhood character objections are not persuasive, and the environmental issues are not considered significant as to make the proposal unacceptable. Therefore, on balance, the advice received is that the proposal is considered acceptable and should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I would move the motion as printed. Thank you, Mayor.
And a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Maltby, thank you. Is there any opposition? Councillor Henderson, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thanks, Mayor. I think this has been an interesting subdivision proposal, which council's been briefed on by our planners in detail. But really, the main things for me are that it is in a general residential zone, so there's really no impediment for the proposal to go ahead, and the lot sizes going up to 2,000 square metres are quite substantial lot sizes. The fact that all the services available make it an attractive development site. And yes, I think on balance, if this was to go to, if it was decided and against and it went to VCAT, I think on balance it would probably get ticked off anyway. So yeah, I'm happy to support this, and there's some young folk in our community get into the residential subdivision business. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now or speak at the end?
Speak again.
No worries. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak for or against the motion?
Thank you, man. This is a difficult one. I mean, you've got a good report. It does point out it's township, not general residential, so services are not there yet. Yes, it's part of the township of zone of Tooting, surrounded by state forest, or quite back and the state side. Before I should say anything more, I should actually thank the applicant for arranging for me to be able to with the land, I think, because to take a walk over the land and over the back of the considerable rock outcrops, which prevent you from seeing the lots 4, 5, and 9. And I appreciate his guarantee that I would not be in danger of harassment, which was the case for actually an hour before we went just to confirm that. So I appreciate that because yes, I wish I'd have a plan decision, especially in this one. The plan is, the instructions are in the conditions that mains, water and sewage must be laid on Because they're not at the moment, but once they get as far as the subdivision, then I think the rest of the road probably be facing the prospect of that. We're also next to the road. Look, on a flat plan, looks fine. Okay, look at the envelopes for the building envelopes, which are restricted by the bushfire considerations of the bush behind and to the sides, and see that some lots pretty restricted space to build. In at least two, if not three of these, you're further restricted by the topography because it's not just a steep slope, it is actually a rock outcrop of considerable extent, and including building the access track, the rock to Route 9, and also going up through the middle. I mean, especially the access to Rock 9 when we follow quite an excavation through rock. And this is not going to be an easy deal. This is not going to be good. Any young folk except wealthy young folk. This would be a very expensive build on these land lots. There are already 5 lots there. If the developer would simply just sell what's there, one at a time, there would be no need to connect water or sewage or upgrade the road. And it would leave Dinah Road pretty much as it is, with larger lots. More often, this land is obviously not being occupied for a long time, probably the original owner and left a will, hence it's been picking up by the method known as possession. Yes, but the lots exist, they will exist at the same time as other times the land road lots formed, and no reason why that should not be as development. I just find it's not respecting the country, basically, to put in this concentration of development on this land, showing disrespect for the country. That's my feeling. But I acknowledge that, the rules are the rules, it's all laid out there, yes, everything next to many pages. So.
Councillor. Councillor Driscoll, do you wish to speak to this one?
Thanks, Mayor. I note that this is in the township zone and it's a residential zone which anticipates subdivision to facilitate residential development. We have a major issue in town in terms of housing affordability, and I think it's incumbent on councillors to continue trying to develop housing within the law, which this one is. There's some people who are concerned about the lot sizes, and indeed they are smaller than the properties in the surrounding area, but they're not too dissimilar to the surrounding area when considered from the perspective of the street level. Any adverse impacts from identified from the amenity issues can be ameliorated through appropriate permit conditions, and I know that there's lots of permit conditions here. So I think the outcome, if they all get passed, will be a good one. And once again, I think we have some major issues here, and we should be appropriate developments. We should be really on board. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll.
It's a developing area and actually very well stored up for these days. The Dinah Road area is in the township zone. This application going to bring sewer and the main road. The other people living nearby will benefit from. The block sizes, the smallest is 806 metre squares. There's many developments on residential land, township land, that are down to 350 square metres. I can understand losing the rural amenity, but the fact is, it's a township zone. And as Councillor Driscoll said, it's a major housing issue. So the more opportunity for people to buy a piece of land and build on is a great asset. And Councillor Henderson mentions the cost of building. Well, at the end of the day, those hard blocks to build on the Julie describing may not even sell if they're overpriced. But the reality is, it's township zoning, there's an opportunity for 9 new houses, and As we know, the applicant is a young person willing to have a go. I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, you have a right of reply.
Thanks for that, Mayor. I think it's generally been covered, but I would like to ask the questions being, councillor Henderson did pick me up on the township zone versus general residential. I wonder if you could ask, Director Anir what the difference is. I'm not sure whether it's in his skill set, but he's a pretty clever guy, so, if that's allowed, please, Mayor.
Director Anir?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Crowley, I have to give you a detailed technical answer that would require me to make reference to the planning scheme to be able to answer that directly. So I'd rather not answer that tonight and take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Would you like to continue, councillor Cordy?
No, I think we've pretty well covered it, so thank you, Director Anir. So we'll find out a little bit more about that down the track.
Thank you. All right, with everyone having spoken, I will now put the motion. All in favour? All against? Motion is carried. And just to confirm, the motion, the recommendation and the motion was to grant a planning permit for PA 211/2022 for the development of the land for a 9-lot subdivision and native vegetation removal at 2842 to 44 Dinah Road, Shooton, subject to many conditions.
If you have a division, please, Mr. Madam.
Councillor Maltby has called for a division. So again, all in favour of this motion, that is Councillor Driscoll, Councillor Cordy and Councillor Maltby, and all against, that is Councillor Henderson and myself. Thank you, everyone. At 9.2, environment, we have new items on the agenda. At item 9.3, economy, 9.3.1, adoption of fee waiver policy. Councillor Driscoll, would you introduce the item, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The updated fee waiver policy is presented for adoption. So I'd like to move and also like to move that council adopts the fee waiver policy.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy put his hand up first. Is there any opposition? No. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you. Yes, Mayor. The type of internal audit finding fee waiver policy adopted in the ordinary meeting of council on the 18th of August 2020. Council regularly receives requests from organisations and individuals to waive fees and charges. This policy is designed to meet community expectations that council resources are distributed fairly, procedures are reasonable and decisions are consistent. This policy also ensures fee waivers are clear, fair, financially sustainable and transparent as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think it's very important that we have this policy in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? No. Councillor Driscoll, do you have a right of reply? All right. I will then put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Nine point 3.2 is reappointment of Audit and Risk Committee independent member. Councillor Driscoll, would you also like to introduce this item?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to reappoint Mr. John Watson as an independent member of the Audit and Risk Committee. With that in mind, I'd like to recommend that council, upon the recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee, reappoints Mr. John Watson to the Audit and Risk Committee for the period from the 1st of July 2023 to the 30th of June 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson? Is there any opposition? Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure, thank you. I've sat on the Audit and Risk Committee since I started with council 4 years ago. and I watched John Watson as an independent member. He actually sits on a number of other risk committees from councils that are larger than us, and I find his input fantastic, and he has a head for detail. So my full recommendation is to council is that he should be reappointed.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to this one?
No, I'm fine with council Driscoll's recommendation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? No. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to the item again? All right, I will then put the motion. All in favour? And the motion is carried. I think it is very, it's very telling that Audit and Risk has recommended John to us again. They value his hard work, and so do we. We look forward to working with you for another 3 years. And 9.3.3, just to stay on topic, is Audit and Risk Committee Remuneration Report. And back to you, Councillor Driscoll, to introduce this one.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to seek council approval to the remuneration of the independent members of the Audit and Risk Committee for the 23-24 year, and the basis for adjustment thereafter. The Audit and Risk Committee charter, which was reviewed and adopted by council on the 18th of August 2020 in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 states. Council committee members are not remunerated for their role on the Audit and Risk Committee. I just might repeat that actually. Council or committee members are not remunerated for their role on the Audit and Risk Committee. Remuneration will be paid to each independent committee member. The council sets the remuneration by resolution at a formal council meeting, and the council meeting held in the 19th of May 2020. The council resolved that the remuneration for the 2021 period financial year will be for the chair $650 per meeting, and independent committee members for $450 per meeting, and a travel allowance of 90 cents per kilometre for independent committee members to travel over more than 40 k's or 40 kilometres. A review has been undertaken at the request of the independent members. So it is a recommendation which I'll read. The council increase the remuneration paid to the Audit and Risk Committee independent member chair position to $750 excluding GST in accordance with the annual CPI Knowledge Index. 2, approves the proposed increase to the Audit and Risk Committee independent members, excluding position as chair, remuneration from $462, excluding GST, to $525, excluding GST per meeting, and increase the travel allowance to $1.04 per kilometre in accordance with the annual CPI Enrolment Index for independent committee members who travel over 50 kilometres in total to attend each meeting. And notes that the increase in payment is approved. It will come into effect from the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting scheduled to take place on the 25th of August 2023.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Henderson. Was there any opposition? Councillor Maltby. All right, councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. A study was done with similar sized councils, and I think we're in the middle there. So I think that's fair and reasonable. There's a few other councils who are more expensive than us, and a few councils that will be less. But I think we're in the middle there, and I think that's fair and reasonable, in my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the end? Yeah. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak against the motion?
Thank you. Whilst I value and appreciate the work the Audit and Risk Committee do, and know that it's an important part of local government in today's era, I just wonder and question if Macedon Rangers are only paying their chair $500 a meeting and rather than $680. Why we as a small rural municipal shire need to be paying $750. For example, I think that rotates down to the committee members as well. Thank you.
Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to this item?
I need to reiterate the important work that the Audit and Risk Committee does. I appreciate their work. So we'll leave it with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak at this time?
Thank you, Matt. There are 4 meetings a year, so monthly. They're not employees. How much someone gets paid to read an awful lot of papers and then come and speak professionally or consider matters professionally over a number of hours, 4 times a year. Very difficult to gauge how much that's worth. It's obviously, let's see, we've got Central Goldfields relatively recently, their first ever audit and risk review. And their costs are considerably higher than ours. So maybe they're probably the best benchmark because they are the modern base of audit and risk costs as opposed to those councils that have been running such items for a very long time. So it's, yes, it's quite a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, I think obviously Councillor Driscoll is able to tell us that they do a good job, and again, the bottom line is that our audit and risk looked after by these people, and we are given good advice. We have good advice given not just to council, to staff, of all matters to do with our governance and running of the business, council, and we rely on them a lot, and therefore we take what they ask for within reason. They're right for raise, we're not going to successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Driscoll, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, mate. Just want to reiterate that I do sit on the Audit and Risk, and every single Audit and Risk, the independent Audit and Risk member sits on other councils, knows their stuff, and always, in my opinion, has something to contribute to the meeting and have read the papers back to front, because I can tell by the questions that they ask. They're all high caliber people, and I think we should be very proud of the independent of our Audit and Risk Committee, because they're not just going through the motions, that they look for risk, and I think they're fulfilling the role of this supposed to, and a little bit extra money because of inflation and things like that. It's we want to pay people correctly for the work that they do. Thanks, me.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. All that being said, I will now put the motion. All in favour? And against? Motion is carried. And I guess I always like to share a bit from my perspective. Councillor Henderson asked, what is their time and their expertise worth? And it is an interesting question. For me, I attended my first Audit and Risk Committee meeting when I was about 2 weeks into council law life, and I could only understand about 2% maybe of what we talked about. It was harrowing for me. Now, obviously, as Mayor, I sit on Audit and Risk Committee along with Councillor Driscoll and our independent members. I understand a lot more now, but I don't understand it all. But I trust that they do, and I know that they do. Like Councillor Driscoll said, they read their papers inside out. They understand it, and not just that, they interrogate it in a way that I just can't. And having them there about their line of defence, as is their job, it means a lot. It means that I don't need to understand everything, to be honest, because I trust that they do. And yeah, I think it's good that we remunerate them fairly. Because it's an amount of work and it breaks my brain, and I'm very glad that we have them there to do what I cannot, basically. So I'm happy that this motion has gotten out. We are on to item 10, which is delegates reports. Now, does anyone have a delegates report they'd like to share? I think Councillor Henderson.
Yeah,
I might.
It's good idea. Along with your good self and Director O'Neill. We do welcome that. we went to the, and of course, the acting chief sergeant of Kathleen, Luke.
Nick Peckham.
Peckham.
Nick Peckham.
Peckham, good man, good man. And we're fronting up to, we've been invited by the Chiltern and Wesley Hill Forum. We've been invited by John, who previously the chair of this combined group, who are seeking greater safety on that stretch of Pyrenees Highway from Chiltern into town. And we met at the Chiltern Town Hall. That's right, all strikes me funny, it's a town hall, it's very small, isn't it? That is Chiltern Town Hall. And there were about 50 people there, I think it was a lot of people. And well, first of all, well, it was well chaired by John, it's good. And it was good that two groups have got similar interests have actually managed to agree, especially
Quickly amend that it was Philip who chaired the meeting, not John,
I'm thinking
just for his benefit.
I do follow John. You can forgive me. Thank you. A group to be able to get together with the children group is a great achievement because we all know children go its own way. But in this case, Chiltern and Wesley Hill agreed to join forces to campaign for greater safety. And of course, they have a lot of things they want, and probably the one that's the greatest reach and can't see it happening in my lifetime or anyone else around this table, in fact, would be to stop, or maybe yours, Mayor, stop the trucks using Pyrenees Highway. That'll be interesting, maybe when it's all done by drones, which case would be fabulous. So, but they do want to, first of all, reduce the speed to its legal limits. Their claim is that there are a lot of speeding vehicles through that section of the highway. And so it was agreed, and I think the police are going to lead this to actually limit and audit. I think our director Anita is involved in giving along the Department of Transport to find out if we do have any speed audits on that stretch of the road, but also to get some new ones done. The old speed tapes and check speed and find out what is happening on that road. And assuming that it's correct that there are a certain number of speeders, then to get some policing of that, to get some cameras on that section of the road, to then monitor and hopefully enforce the legal limits. I think that would give the residents quite a degree of comfort, but also their long-term campaign is to reduce the speed on the road from 50, then 60, all the way to town, to actually reduce it all to 50 kilometres an hour, which is a big ask, but there is there's a precedent in Euston. So watch this space. Anyway, that was the meeting, and I thought it was a good meeting. It was a lot of concord, a lot of listening to each other, and it's good to see a group operating well together. Yeah. And I thank Director Nair for showing up and speaking so well and authoritatively on that. Was really good.
I'll pick up where you left off, Councillor Henderson. By also mentioning that our good friend Marie Edwards is there representing state government and you know doing her bit to advocate for really what the ask is better safety along the road for people and also for the heritage buildings that line the streets in Chiltern, which I'd never thought about the impact of big trucks on. Again, I possibly agree with Councillor Henderson that it is going to be a big one to try and get things to change there. But they've asked, they've been heard by us, by the state, by the police. I feel like we were able to really listen and hear them. I know the state government is committed to some work in terms of the auditing, and the police have committed to doing some work there as well. And we'll obviously be helping out where we can. But it was a very good meeting. I think, as Councillor Henderson mentioned, because people were able to come together and are kind of in their best selves, to be honest. We don't see that enough. I think people cooperating to achieve shared results, and it was a very positive experience. I'm going to pick up on a couple of others from the list, and then hand over to the CEO. So my month, firstly, of course, I started my month a month ago, I was at a Lizzo concert instead of sitting in this chair doing my job, which I'm sorry about. I had a bit of a mind moment where I watched that on the same night. I did have an excellent time, and thank you for approving my week off after that as well, which I sorely needed. Not because I had a big night at Lizzo, but just because I've been the mayor for a while now, and it is a lot. And I was tired, and I just needed to not think about council too much for a week and just do my own things. So thank you for giving me a little bit of time off. I feel refreshed. I'm back to it. This month I've been spending a lot of time with primary school children, not just my own children, but the grade 5 and 6 students from both Winters Flat Primary School and Campbell's Creek Primary School, all part of the Passions and Pathways program this year. Passions and Pathways is a program run through the Glen. I can never remember what it stands for. Director Knight, I might ask you to please spell out this acronym for me, if you don't mind.
Sure, Goldfields Local Employment and Education Network.
Goldfields Local Employment and Education Network. We have a number of little projects with them, and this is one of my favourites. It is a program specifically for grade 5 and 6 students to really get them thinking about career options, but not in a scary way like school does, where very much my generation was told, if you make a mistake with your choices in year 9, it will ruin the rest of your life. This one is very much about people get to different places using different pathways. People follow their passions to do different things. There is no one right pathway. There, you know, your life is basically expanding out in front of you, and you get to choose now. So part of their program is having people come into their schools from different industries, especially they're called young industry ambassadors. So generally people under 30 they get in who are a bit more relatable. I'm 31 now, but I just sneaked in because I went last year and they really liked me, so they let me have another go. So I went to speak to both of these cohorts. I have a very fun PowerPoint presentation, and I talk a lot about basically how if you had met me at 15, probably down in Victory Park, honestly, you would never have thought that I could possibly be sitting in this seat. And myself at 15 really had no idea that the rest of my life could be anything other than a bit of a struggle, honestly. I really did not have a good time as a teenager, and I thought things could never get any better. And to be sitting in this chair now, and to be working with all you good people, and to really be understanding council, and, you know, having all these opportunities to give back. It's a really lovely thing to get to go into schools and tell these young people that you can kind of do things. You don't have to, my story wasn't a straight line at all, but I've achieved things, and sitting here in this chair, most of the time I feel pretty good. So it's a great thing to be able to share. And I hope the kids got a lot out of it. The other part of my involvement with them this month was that we welcomed them into our building. In 2 tours organised by our wonderful staff, and a complete cross-organisational, probably bit of a pain, to be honest. So I'm very thankful that it happened. So they were welcomed in the chamber by me in my full robe and medallion setup, which they always think is pretty flash, and talked a bit about what happens in this room. We had it set up like this. I asked them to simulate a council decision for me, which went about as well as you think it would, with a bunch of young people. We then headed over to the town hall, where 2 of our staff talked to them about what it's like working in venues, especially our sound person, Neil, wowed them a bit with his industry experience. And, you know, just getting to poke around backstage at the town hall was basically my dream as a child. So I think they all loved that. We then got on a bus and went to the transfer station, which, you know, a lot of people would be like, why did you take them to the tip? But I think the tip is actually one of the most fascinating places in our shire. They loved it. We did not let them get off the bus because of the safety and risk aspects, but they would have stayed there all day if they could. And then we took them to the botanical gardens, where our environmental officer and our coordinator of the botanical gardens helped them with a tree planting activity, and talked to them about their jobs. And it was just beautiful, honestly. Everyone who was part of it was really impressed. The kids seemed to get a lot out of it, and it just felt really good. And I know I've talked a lot about that, but it was such a joy that it feels worth talking about at a little bit of length. The other one I would really like to mention, again involving young people, Last year, we awarded a community grant for a project called Caravan Fix Me Up. This is a partnership between, again, the Glen, as well as Delkaya Health and CSC, so Castlemaine Secondary College. Delkaya had a couple of caravans they were using for emergency accommodation for young people. So basically, if something had gone wrong in the house and the young person, there wasn't room for them, or there was some situation occurring in the house that wasn't good, the caravan can be put on the property and they can live out there, basically. So having their own space, getting a bit of independence, really making that transition. The caravans were in very poor condition. We awarded them a community grant, and a bunch of CSC students, mainly from the Flow and VCAL programs, so doing that hands-on learning, have restored it. I went out last week to meet them, a couple of students and their teacher. They have done such a bang-up job. It was incredibly impressive. And honestly, the two young people who were there, who've been taking lead on the project, I've known them both for a number of years, just from around, and both of them I've noticed a big change in. And I asked them about it when I was there. I said, do you think doing this work has had an impact on your lives? And they both said, yes, I feel more confident. I feel like I have more skills. I know how to talk to people. I know how to work as part of a team. And I know that you can look at a broken down caravan one day, and then a few months later, it can be beautiful and ready to be lived in. They really got a lot out of it. So, you know, I often say we don't hear enough about the impacts that our community grants make to community. And it was really rewarding to see both what this has done for the young people involved, but also that, you know, any day perhaps by now a young person is living in that caravan in a much better situation than they would have been otherwise. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that one too. I'll pass over to you, CEO. Oh, got one, I'm sorry. They're all tied together too, so I shouldn't have forgotten, but it is because for whatever reason, we both accidentally left it off our list. So one that's missing on our delegates report is that last week, I think, perhaps the week before, all of us councillors who were around, so all of us apart from Councillor Gardner, who was already on his leave of absence, I think, we had a lovely meeting in here with the board and CEO of Delkaya Health. So, you know, obviously two organisations that do a lot in slightly different spaces, but there is some overlap as well. We were really looking to you know, work on our relationship. Not that it's bad by any means, but it can always be better. I hadn't met anyone from the board. They hadn't met us. You know, turnover in both councillors since the last election and the board, but also we're both working very hard to address some of the issues around you know, the homelessness and rough sleeping crisis that we're facing in our shire, as many other parts of the state and country are experiencing as well. So we both knew we were working on things. We all gathered together and had a meeting first, including a fantastic presentation from our own director, Knight, as well as their Executive Director of Community Services and Wellbeing, Karen James. They both gave us a bit of a presentation on ways that we're both working towards addressing homelessness. And it was great. It was great because we're both doing as much as we can at the moment, but it was also great to see the ways in which we can support each other and work together more collaboratively going forward to really, I think, provide our community with the best result possible. The other lovely bit was that we sat down and enjoyed a dinner together, which we do not get to do enough with people. We spend an awful lot of time in this room. Very rarely are we kind of off the clock. And although in some ways, yes, we're still on the clock because you always are in this room, it's nice to just sit down and have dinner with people sometimes and have a bit of a chat in that more informal way. So I personally found it incredibly beneficial, and I'm hopeful that we can do more things like that in the future. Thank you. CEO.
Thanks very much, Beth. And just continuing the theme of housing related activities quite a bit again this month. We may get to have a visit from Gala Broad MLC earlier in the month, who maybe come down and have a chat with us about anything and everything that was of importance to us. And I think we spent probably 2/3 of our time talking about housing and homelessness, and certainly the work of Director Knight as well was of much interest to her as it was to every other politician that we mentioned too. So great to be able to share some of the work that's happening on both homelessness and housing.
that this Shire is doing. I think we've got yet another parliamentarian sort of shaking their head thinking, how are these guys doing so much? It was a great meeting with Gail. We also were able to meet at the initiative of Marie Edwards. Colin Brooks came to visit us, who's the MP or Minister for Housing and Multicultural Affairs, and sat in this room with us for a good hour and a quarter or so, I think it was in the end, there to talk about all things housing. And once again, we're able to talk about the wide variety of initiatives that we've got going on to try to improve the housing opportunities for people in the long term, as well as trying to deal with that homelessness challenge that we've got at the moment as well. So another great meeting where we did also get to float two pretty important projects to council, the Templeton Street initiative on your land, as well as the Eddy Street initiative on state government land, among a variety of other things. So following on from that also, as the rep on Rural Council Victoria, got to meet with Harriet King, who's the Minister for Water, Regional Development and Equality, but is also the Minister whose job it is to see that the $2 billion coming out of the Commonwealth Games gets shared equitably into regional and rural Victoria. And thank you to hear Minister King using those words, regional and rural Victoria, that we often promote as being two separate entities. So a great meeting with her, who clearly understands that we need to be looking at how does rural Victoria get a good share in those funds that are coming out of the Commonwealth Games, not preceding that $2 billion, $1 billion, which is for housing. And again, we got to talk about Eddy Street and Templeton Street to an extent in that meeting as well, despite it being a Rural Council Victoria meeting. The other one that I wanted to mention was the meeting that myself and Claire Richards, Housing Solutions Broker, had today with Haven, continuing their CEO, continuing to progress the initiative at Templeton Street with them and talking about the challenge that we have. And certainly, I think we are very keen together to see how do we get the Templeton Street project on the agenda of government as part of that $1 billion in housing investment, because while there's a number of different ways to get things funded, they are very complex for rural council settings, and that could well be a great opportunity for us. So we're going to be pushing that pretty hard in the next week and a half before I go on leave, ma'am. Thank you.
Just checking that there's no other delegates reports before we move on. All right. On to item 11 and notices of motion. I was trying to help the chair for this item. There is something that we need to do to make that happen. I would like somebody to. Oh, I just moved, don't I? And you handle this. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. So in accordance with our governance rules in section 7.2, and the Mayor wishes to vacate the chair, it is my role. It is my role to facilitate the nomination of an acting chair, noting that the deputy chair is the likely person to be nominated. Do I have a nomination, councillors?
I'd like to nominate that Deputy Mayor Chris Driscoll take the chair for the purpose of this policy, considering this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Thank you, Councillor Maltby. All in favour? Chair is yours, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Theo. Item 11, notice of motion. Mayor Anita, would you like to move your motion, please?
I would like to move my motion. So we've been back on the side of the table, getting back, and your chair is slightly higher than mine, so I'm just going to lower myself. It's very strange for me to get out of the chair in order to move this, but obviously I feel it's important enough to do so. So my notice of motion number 004/2023, banning of dogs on Western Reserve, Castlemaine. I'm moving a motion that says that that asks council officers to undertake a targeted community consultation process to obtain feedback from relevant users and interested parties on the impacts of the current prohibition of dogs on Western Reserve under the order of council adopted on 15th of February 2022, and provide a report on the findings including an opinion on the need for any potential amendment to the Order of Council in relation to Western Reserve at the November 2023 meeting of Council.
Thank you, councillor Lear. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, councillor Henderson. Do I have any opposition to that motion? Okay, councillor Lear, would you like to say something about your motion?
I would, thank you. So obviously this comes off the back of the changes that we made to local laws as part of the Order of Council around the Domestic Animal Management Plan, or the DAMP, that we adopted last year in February. You know, at the time, it was one of our most heated debates ever, I think, and went through various incarnations of the motion going up and failing before we arrived at one that got through. I suppose at the time I felt not great about it. At the time I felt that the inclusion of the Western Reserve in the list of spaces where dogs are banned was a mistake. And I still feel that way, but obviously it became a decision of council and I accepted it as that. I did, however, kind of put a bit of a flag in my head and go, I'm just going to keep my eye on what's happening here, and I may revisit it down the track if I still feel very strongly about it. So over the last 18 months, I've been very open to listening to people's concerns about this. I attend the farmers market that's held on the Western Reserve monthly. I attend other events there. I spend time at the skate park and the BMX track with my kids. I meet friends on the Oval for lunch with other people. We use the space as a family. And I've heard from a lot of people that the changes that were made have impacted them, especially relating to the farmers market, but not just that, the fact that they can't go out as a family all together to use a skate park or something when, to a lot of people, their dog is part of their family. I guess I remain unconvinced that the Western is a true sports ground. And I'm just going to read what I've written here because it puts it into much better words than I'll be able to on the fly. So, after consistent feedback from the community, I am asking council to support a further piece of community engagement work to test whether prohibiting dogs from the Western Reserve is having the desired outcome, especially as it relates to the Castlemaine Farmers Market and other events held on the reserve. I'd like to note that the Western Reserve does not have as defined a playing surface as many of the other locations, apart from seasonal use of the cricket pitch. And it hosts a range of events throughout the year with much more regularity than the space is used for organised sport. I suggest that the Western Reserve is, therefore, a shared or community space rather than a space reserved for sport alone, and could be excluded from the list of places where dogs are prohibited, if this is the preferred outcome of user groups, event holders, and the community in general. Basically, I've heard a lot from people who would love to be able to take their dogs with them, but I am willing to admit that I haven't heard from everyone or all interested parties. I'm requesting that we do further consultation to figure out what the effect of this is having on people and what people prefer going forward. I would like to note that when we did the consultation to inform the DAMP back in 2021, and the question was posed to people as part of a survey regarding the Western Reserve, there were 91 responses. People who wanted to ban dogs, that was 20.94% of people. People who wanted dogs to be allowed on a leash when the Oval is in use was 71.73%. So that is the clear majority. And people who wanted them allowed off leash at all times, 7.33%. So in some ways we have already asked the community, and the community have already told us. I'm requesting that we ask them again, and in a more targeted fashion, I guess, in that we ask people we're using the space as much as we can. And I really implore us this time to listen to what our community says. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lear. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right to speak?
I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Other councillors, would anybody like to speak for or against the motion? Yes, councillor Maltby.
I'm happy for the motion to be approved. I question what is the targeted community consultation process? Because any consultation should be done with the whole community, not certain selected people. And is it a sports oval? I believe so. So does many other people in the community, but the consultation will bring that answer. The other question I have in life, we're talking about dogs, is why would you take a dog to a food market? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corder, would you like to say something?
Thanks for that, Deputy Mayor. Look, I guess in terms of consultation, happy to go back and have another go at this, but equally, I'm a little concerned when we talk about targeted community consultation. Does that mean you only ask the people that are going to tell you what you want to hear? So that's a big question mark for me. And I would have thought the Western Oval was very clearly defined in terms of the playing service. I'd note that the current controls don't include areas surrounding the playing service, like the skate park. So which is mentioned. So there you go. I guess time will tell. I feel a bit uncomfortable when I attend farmers market type event that do allow dogs on leash. I think if people want to walk their dog, they should find somewhere market. So yeah, I don't support people having their dogs with them at places where food's being sold.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Henderson, would you like?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I do remember a clear majority, large majority of people say yes. On all on the leash. That came out very clearly, but council chose to ignore that result. And so we've got reasonable proofs in those cases, because most of our sports reserves do have playing ovals fine by fences. Camp, yeah, Campbell's Point, we've got tracking track. We've got Montaradale. Yes, what about in Guildford? Is there a defined playing oval with a surround green space? Yeah. Not so in the Western Reserve. It doesn't have an oval. Why would say oval in our overall? I've no idea, but there is no oval. Neither is one in June. You don't play some of them oval. Children's swimming. And certainly it's rectangle, and the very committee that runs that and very carefully said that in a consultation that they are not opposed to dogs on it. However, Mariners have chosen to just go for the Western Reserve, so I'll be with that for the time being. I think it's rather well, I'll be careful what I say, but anyway, I don't think it's fair to our commitment to say that our Comms team will actually not do a good job consulting everyone who might be users or interested parties. So I don't think that anyone going to come to Elphinstone or going to even Malvern really to ask people what they think about dogs on the Western Reserve, because half of them won't know what you mean. Certainly not in quite a lot of the Shire. So I think it pretty is much is a children issue. Of course, a lot of people come to the farmers market, which is another issue, but we're not talking about whether dogs should be allowed at the farmers market. Personally, I think we lost the plot. I must have put a fight on that one a long time ago. People take their dogs. The dogs are a very important part of their lives, and they like very much their dogs to go on. However, it's not really about whether they should or not go to the farmers market, it's whether we can actually do the targeted community consultation by asking people who are interested in the Western Reserve, and let's receive the report. I strongly support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Neal, would you like a right to reply?
Please. But let me clarify, by targeted, I meant targeted to the Western Reserve. Our last study took in all sports grounds. I'm asking for targeted consultation on the Western Reserve by people who are interested in it. Basically, they don't have to be interested in it, but I feel like people who aren't interested in it, the issue or the ground, probably aren't going to come to the party anyway. So I'm just confirming that. I'm not asking that we just talk to people who want dogs there. I'm asking that we talk to people specifically, targetedly about the Western Reserve. Why would you take a dog to a food market? Asked Councillor Maltby. I don't know. I'm not a dog owner. As we all know, I am a very, very, very proud and loud cat owner. But I respect people's rights to take their dogs places as long as they are controlled, safe, and they pick up their droppings. Also, I don't think it should be council's responsibility to either enforce laws about taking a dog to the farmers market. I feel like that should be a farmers market thing. They can decide whether or not they want to have dogs there. The problem is at the moment that they can't decide because we've made that space a place where you can't take your dog regardless of whether there's a farmers market there or not. I would like that space to be one where you could take your dogs. And then the farmers market, if they want, can say you can't bring your dogs to the farmers market. And then they can enforce that. Instead of our local laws officers having to go down there every Sunday and get abused by people from Melbourne who just wanted to come to a farmers market, which I'm not here for. I don't think that's okay. I also think it's worrying when we don't listen to our community. I think it's silly that we have to go out and do this again, but it is a hot topic. I can't go anywhere without people talking to me about it. I never thought I would spend so much time talking about dogs, to be honest, but I really see the effect that it's had on some people. And I know it might seem silly to some people that a dog is part of the family and not being able to take them places with you, should just be fine. But there are people I know and there are people I've spoken to who are affected and whose lives have been affected by it. And it's not my place to judge them, honestly. So look, I'm hoping this motion gets up because this is a small thing I think we could do to perhaps correct a decision that maybe wasn't the right one. And I think there's nothing wrong with a council standing up sometimes and saying, look, we might have made a bit of a mistake here with part of this thing. We're going to look again at that one part. We're going to ask you again what you think. And I'm happy to go by what the community thinks. I could be wrong. I really could, and I'm happy to be wrong. But I would really like to know that we're enforcing the right thing going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so I'm just going to read the motion again. So that council officers, one, undertake a targeted community consultation process to obtain feedback from relevant users and interested parties on the impacts of the current prohibition of dogs in Western Reserve under the order of council adopted on the 15th of February 2022. And two, provide a report on the findings, including an opinion on the need for any potential amendment to the order of council in relation to Western Reserve at the November 23 meeting of the council. We have a mover and we have a seconder. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. That was carried. So I just want to note that officers will consider this request report to be completed for presentation at the meeting of council on the 21st of November 2023. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for indulging me leaving the chair and then also getting back into the chair. So, moving on from the motion, we are at 12, urgent special business, of which there is nil. And item 13, confidential items. These reports are confidential in accordance with section 66 in brackets 2 in brackets A of the Local Government Act 2020, which permits the meeting to be closed to consider confidential information. Councillors, I have a recommendation. Councillor Maltby.
I'll move the council closes the ordinary meeting of council 15th of August 2023 in accordance with section 66(2)(a), the Local Government Act 2020, in order to consider confidential information as it's contained, as it contains as defined in the Local Government Act under Section 3 definitions, confidential information. Personal information being information which released would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information without any personal affairs, without any personal affairs.
Councillor, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, all in favour? Motion carried. We are closing the meeting to everyone. Our Principal Governance Officer, please vacate the premises in a timely fashion.